Hello, welcome to Victory News, Monday, October the 28th, 2024. I'm Greg Stevens, along with Mike Garofalo, Fiora Hernandez, and Tim Fox. Here are a few of the stories that we're watching for you today. Before Donald Trump's capacity rally in Madison Square Garden on Sunday, New York Mayor Eric Adams said Donald Trump was not a fascist, nor like Adolf Hitler. And one professor warns that the push to make diversity, equity, and inclusion the top priority in university threatens academic freedom. Ahead, we'll talk with Counterpoint Institute for Policy and Research Education President Dr. Shay Bradley Farrell. But first, let's go to Fiora Hernandez with our headlines. Fiora.
Thank you, Greg. As of this morning, Americans have cast more than 42 million early votes in the 2024 election, according to a report from the University of Florida Election Lab. Nearly 21 million of those were in person, with slightly more than that mailed in. A breakdown of those early votes by Breitbart News appears to show swing state early voting data trending favorably toward GOP candidate Donald Trump. According to The Hill, the party breakdown of early voting shows nearly 41% were Democrats and 36% were Republicans, with the largest age group, 46%, being 65 and older. They consisted of nearly 46% voters. Coming in second at 37% were 41 to 65-year-olds. Georgia and North Carolina, both considered battleground states, have reported record-breaking early voting numbers. The Iowa Secretary of State announced this past week that more than 2,000 non-citizens were found on Iowa voter rolls, and some were referred to the Attorney General for possible prosecution during an audit of Iowa's 2.3 million voter records. Nearly 2,200 non-citizens were found. Paul Pate indicated that over 2,000 of the individuals self-reported that they were non-citizens and then registered to vote or voted anyway, with the possibility that they later become naturalized citizens. Iowa's News Now reported the voting records audited go back to the year 2000, so it is not clear when these votes were cast. Pate said it was a felony for non-citizens to either vote or register to vote, adding, quote, "We will work with the authorities to ensure that those who break the law are prosecuted to the fullest extent. For anyone that did vote illegally, first-degree election misconduct is a Class D felony, punishable by up to 5 years in prison and a fine of up to $7,500. Prosecutors in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, announced Friday election worker volunteers uncovered a large-scale fraudulent voter registration scheme. Ray D'Agostino, who is the chairman of the Lancaster County Board of Elections, describes what was found.
This includes issues of duplicate handwriting matching other voter registration forms in the batches, inconsistent signatures with what is on the file in the SURE system, because some of these or many of these are duplicates, unverifiable and or accurate addresses, an inaccurate driver's license or social security number verification.
Reportedly, 60% of the applications collected from voter registration drives at various local shopping centers were implicated. And according to Just the News, the incident mirrors a similar operation in Muskegon, Michigan, following the 2020 election that was investigated by police and turned over to the FBI. When Just the News submitted Freedom of Information Act requests about the case and its resolution, the FBI denied them, citing the investigation was, quote, ongoing. Mike?
Fiora, New York City Mayor Eric Adams defended Donald Trump this weekend, rejecting attacks by fellow Democrats that the Republican presidential nominee is a fascist in the image of Adolf Hitler. Adams was speaking at a news conference addressing security for the Trump rally at Madison Square Garden when a reporter asked this.
If you believe, as others have said, that the former president is a fascist?
My answer is no. I know what Hitler has done, and I know what a fascist regime looks like. I think, as I've called over and over again, that the level of conversation, I think we could all dial down the temperature.
The embattled mayor also spoke out against people who wanted to stop Trump from holding his rally, saying this is America and that Trump had a right to get his message out clearly to New Yorkers. Madison Square Garden and the streets of Midtown Manhattan were painted red with MAGA movement supporters on Sunday. The New York Post reported Trump not only sold out the Garden with some 20,000 supporters, but thousands more were turned away. One law enforcement officer told the Post that they could have sold out the Garden twice.
America first forever.
He's a real person and he loves America.
Trump, Trump, Trump.
Unity and patriotism drowned out Democrat attempts to smear the event with hateful rhetoric and division.
There's something very powerful happening out there among the base, okay? I'm telling you, there's an energy out there that we have not seen before.
Various speakers took the stage, including former First Lady Melania Trump. As for the Republican candidate for president himself, it was clearly a special night for him.
But I'm thrilled to be back in the city I love, and thousands of proud, hard-working American patriots. You're with me. We're all together. We've always been together. I'm asking you to dream big again. We're going to dream big again. We haven't been dreaming big at all.
Trump stayed on message, talking about illegal immigration, inflation, and the failures of the Biden-Harris administration. Fior.
Mike, Donald Trump also made history this weekend in Michigan.
I am proclaiming that by the end of my term, the entire world will be talking about the Michigan miracle and the stunning rebirth of Detroit.
During a rally in Novi, Michigan Saturday, he vowed to bring the auto industry back to the Wolverine state and announced the Trump Reciprocal Trade Act. The act would reportedly work like this. If a foreign country like China charges the U.S. a 100 to 200% tax to sell our product in their country, the U.S. will charge the products that they are selling in the U.S. the same. Then came this unprecedented endorsement from the city of Hamtramck's Muslim and Democratic Mayor Amer Ghalib.
We as Muslims stand with President Trump because he promises peace. He promises peace, not war. I personally believe that God saved his life twice for a reason.
Ghalib praised Trump policies of promoting family values, protecting children from certain school curriculums, and allowing only legal immigration. Trump called the endorsement an honor. Kamala Harris's Houston rally turned chaotic twice this weekend. First, when a promised concert from Beyonce at her Friday event turned out to be just a 4-minute speech, resulting in an angry crowd. Things got a little crazy a second time when Harris filled the stage with abortion doctors to promote her support of a national law allowing the killing of the unborn anytime during a pregnancy. When people in the crowd suddenly started shouting for medical attention, none of the doctors on stage seemed to make any effort to help.
Nationwide, I think someone needs some medical assistance over here.
Various news reports attendees passed out from heat exhaustion. Greg?
All right. In a recent interview on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, Donald Trump discussed the risks of politics, calling it a very dangerous and tough business.
Oh, it's a creepy, corrupt business, and the media, to a large extent, acts as a propaganda arm for the Democratic Party.
It's not even believable.
Yeah, it's bizarre to watch, and most young people, I think, are aware of it. I think most boomers still, unfortunately, read the newspapers and believe in CNN.
But it's getting younger.
Yes.
Let me tell you, it's getting for us, for a conservative.
Yes.
And I consider myself a person.
It's the internet. It's because the internet's giving people information that they're not getting from anywhere else. And they like the Very Fine People hoax, the Russiagate hoax, all these different things that they've done. They tried to pin on you. That's like, it's a clear distortion of what you actually said.
The entire conversation lasted 3 hours. Kamala Harris declined her own invitation to be on. With us now is the president of Counterpoint Institute for Policy Research and Education, Dr. Shea Bradley Farrell. Welcome to Victory News, ma'am.
Hi, thank you so much, Greg, for having me.
You just heard Joe Rogan and Donald Trump discuss the risk of politics. Now, I want you to listen to Rogan after the interview talk with his co-host about the manipulative media and opposing party trying to deceive the American public. Here it is.
When you see over and over and over and over again the media manipulating things and lying about things to make him seem way worse than he is,
Hitler,
you should be suspicious.
Yes,
you should be
There's
real
a reason
suspicious.
why they're doing that.
Exactly.
Joe,
they don't want to lose that job. They're in desperado mode now.
All right, your reaction to Joe Rogan's comments and the president's interview with him.
Yeah, he hit it right on the head there, Greg. The media is desperate, especially right now. Trump is leading in 7 swing states. And, you know, I mean, what you just said, Trump did 3 hours with Rogan. Do you really think Harris could have done that? I mean, we've seen her barely show up at all.
Well, that's true. She did have a lot of doctors standing there on that stage, though. I saw you laugh at me. I wanted to say something. I backed off. Donald Trump's MAGA Square Garden rally last night was all about America, its people, and turning the government back to serving them and not the other way around. Now, Musk spoke, reminding people that government spending equals taxation of citizens directly through inflation. Here he is.
Your money is being wasted, and the Department of Government Efficiency is going to fix that. We're going to get the government off your back and out of your pocketbook.
All right, there you go. What do you think of Trump promising to put Musk in charge of a department to review government spending, cut billions in wasted spending, inefficient programs? Your thoughts on that?
Oh, perfect. Because Musk is a libertarian in his heart. He will actually cut spending rather than just promising it. And he's a brilliant guy. I think that's a good idea. And Greg, also, we have to remember, this is a government for the people, by the people. The Biden administration, Biden-Harris, has shown us that they are a government for the government. So we got to fix that.
You mentioned Biden-Harris, so let me ask your thoughts on this. Axios is reporting that Harris wants Joe Biden to stay on the sidelines during her campaign. It's causing tension between the team and the White House. Why do you think she wants him to stay away this closing week?
It's very simple, because she's trying to deceive people into thinking she had nothing to do with the failure of the past 4 years. Every narrative that she comes up with is something that is deceptive in that way. It is the Biden-Harris administration, everyone. She's responsible.
Okay, she appeared on CBS Sunday Morning to trot out a very discredited lie. Here it is.
You know that Donald Trump has disavowed Project 2025. He says that is not his campaign plan.
As you know, I am a former prosecutor. His DNA is all over it. All over it.
All right, we're showing right now the USA Today fact sheet that reveals that's not true. One of many media sources that prove that, yet she still says it. What does that say about her campaign? Better yet, what does that say about her?
Again, deception, because she cannot stand on her record. If you're paying attention at all over the past 4 years, her record is disastrous. And let me tell you something, she should stop saying that she is a prosecutor, because the facts is that crime went up since they took the administration by 41%. Under Donald Trump, violent crime, Greg, went down 17%.
Well, that's the fact, and you should look into what she did when she was Attorney General in California. You'd be shocked at some of the people she prosecuted. Exactly. Dr. Shea, thank you so much. We'll be back to you in just a moment. Mike?
Thank you, Greg.
Greg, a federal appeals court ruled Friday that Mississippi's law allowing mail-in ballots to be accepted up to 5 days after Election Day violates federal law, according to the Washington Times. The 3-judge panel reasoned that Congress established 1 day for a federal election. The opinion read in part, the federal law requires voters to take timely steps to vote by Election Day, and federal law does not permit the state of Mississippi to extend the period for voting by 1 day, 5 days, or 100 days. The state's contrary law is preempted. The ruling reverses an earlier decision by a district court that sided with the state in a suit brought by the Republican National Committee. According to the National Conference of State Legislatures, more than 18 states and territories have laws that allow mail-in ballots to be received after Election Day, some as high as 10 days afterwards, as long as they are postmarked on time. The Associated Press, that is, reported the decision may well take the voting rights fight to the U.S. Supreme Court. In news out of Arizona, in leaked Maricopa County election training videos, election trainers Amy Bricker and Dawn Woodruff reportedly told undercover journalists from O'Keefe Media Group that poll workers cannot intervene in instances of suspected third-party ballot harvesting, saying it's not our job to police that. In this video, a journalist pointed out to the trainer that even if valid ballots were picked up from other homes, it is still a felony to turn those in.
Well, so that, again, they would have to be signed
Right.
by the owners.
Right.
So if it's signed by the owners, then that is a valid signature, and that is a valid ballot.
When asked if poll workers could address possible illegal ballot harvesting, Bricker emphasized that their role is limited to processing ballots, provided they are signed and dated regardless of how they were collected. Additionally, the undercover journalists from OMG learned that Department of Justice federal agents will be stationed at polling centers throughout Maricopa County to potentially follow up on lawsuits or election monitoring. Tim.
Mike, Texas Senator Ted Cruz and his campaign have filed a complaint with the Federal Exchange Commission alleging his Democrat challenger violated federal law. According to Just the News, the Republican alleges Representative Colin Allred was coordinating with the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee on television ad buys and is asking the FEC to immediately investigate and put a stop to this flagrant violation of federal law. FEC data shows the committee and the Allred campaign have placed over $10 million in ad buys and reservations with Texas TV stations through November 5th. According to the complaint, that dollar amount far exceeds the DSCC's $2.8 million coordinated party expenditure limit for the Texas Senate race, as well as the $5.7 million combined limit. Fior?
Tim, a former Vatican leader and Roman Catholic Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano is urging American Catholics to support Donald Trump on November 5th, warning that Kamala Harris will fashion a, quote, ferocious dictatorship if she wins the White House. Vigano, who was excommunicated in 2016 and previously served as the Vatican's ambassador to the U.S., wrote an open letter to American Catholics that Trump is, quote, the only possible choice, stating, in this election, you must choose between two radically opposed ways of conceiving the government of your nation. You are called to choose between democracy and dictatorship, between freedom and slavery. Vigano also declared, quote, in Donald Trump's America, every Catholic can practice their faith and educate their children in it without interference from the state. The former Archbishop called Kamala Harris, quote, an infernal monster who obeys Satan, end quote. Arguing in her America, Catholics and Protestants are considered fundamentalists to be marginalized and eliminated, and their children are considered the property of the state. Vigano concluded, saying voting for Kamala Harris is morally inadmissible and constitutes a very grave sin. Mike.
Fiora, a Cambridge University professor, says the push to make diversity, equity, and inclusion the top priority in higher education is a big threat to academic freedom. According to Breitbart News, Professor John Merenbaum thinks woke policies are harmful by lowering educational standards. He says diversity, equity, and inclusion focuses more on identity than actual academic skills. As a result, colleges lower expectations for students, which later leads to less prepared workers in a competitive global economy. Professor Merenbaum also warned that academic freedom was designed to protect against outside interference, but it now faces threats from academics pushing for conformity and the silencing of opposing views. All right, let's talk to Dr. Shea Bradley Farrell of the Counterpoint Institute one more time. Doc, what's your assessment of the impact of diversity, equity, and inclusion on education in the United States?
It is a radical Marxist ideology that seeks to actually divide along race lines, again, along identity lines, in order to, that the elites or the group in control has more control. If we're divided, the ruling party has more control over us. That is what we've seen happening in our universities. Its goal is to destroy the foundation of our society. And Mike, haven't we seen that in universities over the past few years?
You know, Doc, newly announced Republican Tulsi Gabbard spoke at Donald Trump's rally in New York City last night. The former congresswoman and military officer had a dramatic take on Kamala Harris on the world stage.
A vote for Kamala Harris is a vote for Dick Cheney, and it's a vote for war, more war, likely World War III and nuclear war.
So, Dr. Shea, you're a foreign policy expert. What is your perspective on Gabbard's comments and how Donald Trump would be different?
And Mike, I've also met and spoke with Tulsi. She is a real patriot that has served her country honorably, and she's exactly right. Harris has a plan right now to keep the war going on in Ukraine with our taxes indefinitely. So a vote for Harris is a vote for an American forever war, in my opinion.
Doc, J.D. Vance took on CNN's Jake Tapper when he trotted out several of the disgruntled people who worked with Donald Trump in the White House. Here's Vance.
All of these people, Jake, they came into office thinking that they could control Donald Trump, that when he said he wanted peace in the world,
Pence thought he could control Donald Trump?
Yes, he did. And when he found out that when he found out that he couldn't, they all turned on Donald Trump.
So you see people like General John Kelly as those wanting to get even with Trump when they didn't become influencers in his previous administration?
Yep. Yeah, Mike, it's actually true. I worked alongside the Trump White House for 4 years as a policy in a policy organization. And one of our biggest obstacles were the people that were supposed to be working for Trump that were not upholding his agenda and wanted to control the agenda rather than serve the president. Absolutely, he's correct.
Doc, Florida Senator Marco Rubio spoke out on behalf of American citizens receiving half the monthly amount of money from Social Security than an illegal immigrant receives. Listen to this.
They've worked here their entire lives. They retire. They get $800, $900, $1,000 a month from Social Security. And then they run into somebody who just got here from Cuba 3 months ago, is 29 years old, doesn't work, and is given $1,500 a month in benefits by our government because they're refugees.
Dr. Shea, this is un-American. And is it worsening the nation's debt and inflation? I would gather it is.
This is horrible, Mike. I mean, this is Harris' agenda, though. This is what she has spent the past 4 years doing, is giving illegal immigrants much higher level of care than American citizens. So, I've spent 4 years watching her destroy our sovereignty and our communities because of this type of agenda.
Dr. Shea, U.S. national security and foreign policy are increasingly critical issues for the November 5th election. Counterpoint Institute is offering a series called Vision 2025. What is it and how can it help inform voters this November?
Well, when you go to the voting polls, you have to make an informed decision, Mike. And most people don't understand what our real interest is in Ukraine. They don't know what the top challenges are at the border that the next administration will have to handle. They don't know where our taxes are going through foreign aid, and it would shock you. Right. So go to counterpointinstitute.org. We've got 3 reports. We're continuing to add to them. You can download them for free so that you'll be informed at the voter poll.
All right, Dr. Shea, thank you for being with us today. Great to see you.
Thanks, Mike.
Fior.
Mike, an alleged intelligence collection effort by Chinese hackers targeting people inside and outside government may have included the Republican presidential ticket of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. According to the New York Times, investigators are trying to determine what, if any, communications data was taken or observed by the sophisticated penetration of telecom systems, which sources who spoke to the Times described as an active and highly sensitive national security case. The concerning aspect of this is the type of information gathered would show who the person called and texted, as well as the frequency of communications, which could be highly valuable to an adversary like China. Sources briefed on the matter said Democrats were also targeted, including staff members of Kamala Harris and New York Senator Chuck Schumer. The billionaire owner of the Los Angeles Times blocked the newspaper from an endorsement for Kamala Harris because she says she supports Israel's actions in Gaza to eliminate the Hamas terrorists. The New York Post reports Patrick Soon-Shiong's daughter, Nika, a 30-something far-left political activist, has been accused of influencing the paper, even though she does not work there. She told the New York Times, quote, "Our family made the joint decision not to endorse a presidential candidate. This was the first and only time I have been involved in the process." Sun Sion's daughter also accused Israel of committing genocide. Just days after the LA Times decision, the Washington Post also withheld that paper's planned endorsement of Kamala Harris. Anger and protests resulted in both newsrooms at both publications. Tim?
Thank you, Fiora. Now with the latest on Israel's war to defend itself, here's ILTV and Israel 365's Steve Leibowitz.
Top Hamas officials said that the Gazan terror group is now open to a deal with Israel. Hussam Badran, a Qatari-based member of the Hamas political bureau, said that an agreement is possible. He said, "Our demands are clear and known and can be reached during the Doha talks aimed at ending the war and freeing the hostages." The IDF offensive in South Lebanon continues to advance amid ongoing aerial assaults, degrading Hezbollah missile and missile launching capabilities. The fatality in yesterday's mass casualty terrorist truck ramming has been identified as 73-year-old Betzalel Karmi from Rishon LeZion. The attacker, who was neutralized, was identified as Rami Nasrallah, an Arab-Israeli driver from Kalansoa in central Israel. His employer said that Nasrallah had a regular route and unloaded his truck in Ramat HaSharon before driving toward Glilot and carrying out the attack. 32 people were wounded in the attack when the driver rammed his truck into the back of a bus filled with civilian pensioners on a day trip to October 7th related memorial events. Steve Leibowitz for ILTV and Victory News.
Thank you, Steve. We must not let up in our prayers for the peace of Jerusalem and an end to terrorism worldwide. Greg?
All right, as we go today, there's a phone number on the screen right now that you can call. A licensed prayer minister, trained, is ready to pray with you concerning whatever it is in your life. 877-281-6297. 877-281-6297. As I was listening to Steve Leibowitz right there, I began to just think about something. We may see the end of this thing before the election, especially if Donald Trump wins this. It reminded me of Ronald Reagan and the hostages in Iran that they released. When Reagan won, they released the hostages. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see that. So let's continue to pray for that situation and for peace to reign in America during this election cycle. And you'd be vigilant in watching the election. So Lord, we thank you. I thank you that movement is happening in this situation with your chosen people. We want them all released. In the name of Jesus, we agree together concerning that. And for this election, Father, for peace to rule and reign in America, and that the votes are counted accurately. And we ask for that in your name. Amen. Our thanks to Dr. Shay Bradley Farrell, and especially you. Thanks for joining us today. We're back at 5 Eastern, 4 Central with former Michigan State Senator Pat Kolbeck. You'll want to hear from him. And Pennsylvania State Representative Stephanie Borowicz, you need to hear from her as well. Both critical states in this election. And make sure you're with us as well. The world reports the problem. Victory Channel brings you the answer. Whatever's born of God overcomes the world. This is the victory that's overcome the world, our faith. That's 1 John chapter 5 and verse 4. So what you need to do is stay in faith, and stay in faith, and pray in faith. Don't pray out of a spirit of fear. God bless you. We'll look for you this evening at 5 Eastern. Bye for now.